Hey guys, it's Ryan Holman, founder of Sales Recruiting University. Excited to be here with you today. We're going to talk about sales recruiting, building a scalable talent pipeline. So if you're not familiar with what we do, we're a company that recruits over 1,000 commission-based sales reps per month. I've been doing this for over 11 years. I've had 3 businesses. Sales Recruiting University is my 3rd business. We've been around for almost 8 years, and we literally recruit more commission-based sales reps than any other comparable service that exists. And so I'm going to talk through that process of how we do that. How do we recruit over 1,000 commission-based sales reps per month? Now, I want to give you some context before we get going, because I think this will be helpful for some of you. Now, if you already have a successful sales organization, you've been building a commission-based sales team for a while, you kind of already get this, but in case it's helpful for anybody, these are kind of the numbers around recruiting, right? So I want you to understand that when you're recruiting, especially a commission-based sales team, it's really a volume game. So what it looks like is conservatively 50, but usually, especially if you're going to be a little bit picky in the hiring process, it's going to take up to 100 applications just to get 1 rep into onboarding, okay? So 100 applications come into the recruiting pipeline, and 1 rep, if you have a decent recruiting system, is actually going to show up with their agreement signed, ready to rock and roll on Monday. And we're not even talking about a retained rep yet, which we'll get to here in a moment. But 100 applications come in, 80% of them need to get screened out, so they're not even worth taking through the recruiting process based on their background, right? That means obviously there's another 20% of people that need to go through a recruiting process. Ideally, it's a good recruiting process. And if you have a good recruiting process, 2 of those people are going to say verbally yes to moving forward, and 1 of them is actually going to show up to work on Monday with their agreement signed. Now, you may be wondering why, hey, if 2 people said yes, why did 1 person show up? Well, assuming an all commission opportunity, the reality is that there's attrition that immediately starts in the hiring process. So you may have experienced this before. Maybe you recruit 3 reps, but only 3 reps show up out of 4. And you're like, where's the other guy or gal, right? There's attrition that happens. So this is conservative attrition. So 100 applications come in, 80% of the people get cycled out. 20% of them go through a recruiting process. 2 of them, right, which is 10% of this number, 2 out of 20, assuming 100 applications, say verbally yes to moving forward, and 1 of them actually shows up into Monday. Now, what we typically see why recruiting is challenging is, and this is an important piece, is most organizations, they spend at least 10 hours on this process. So 100 applications come in. To get the 1 recruit, assuming they have a decent recruiting system, it takes them 10 hours plus of work. Now, where it gets really frustrating is most organizations obviously are going to have attrition. And so at the very best, we will see 50% retention. But for most organizations, especially the small business owner, they're going to be somewhere in between 33%, 25%, or 20% retention in their commission-based sales program. Now, the better the opportunity is, the better the comp plan is, the better the sales operations, onboarding, training, management is, the higher your retention rates are going to be. The harder it is to ramp up into the role, the longer the sales cycle, the crappier the income is at the beginning, the lower your retention rates are going to be. And so everybody's a little bit different, but for the sake of illustration, let's just say that you have a 25% retention rate. Okay, well, what this means, of course, is if you recruit 4 reps and you have a 25% retention rate, well, you're going to retain 1 rep out of those 4. And again, that's assuming you have solid systems in place. So if you have a 25% retention rate, that means you need to recruit 4 reps for every 1 that sticks. Now, if we go back to these numbers, 100 applications just to get 1 rep, and it's a 10-hour time investment, well, if we need to recruit 4 reps to get 1 to stick, which is the most important piece because the sticking and the sales production is why you recruit in the first place. Well, what this means is we need 400 applications. 80% of these people is 320 that need to be cycled out, so you need to put the time and energy into those people. That leaves 80, which is 20% of the 400 number left to ideally go through a good recruiting system. And then if you're good, 8 of those people will say yes, 4 of those people will actually sign their agreement and show up on Monday, and 1 of them will stick. Okay, and we're talking about, if it's 400 applications or, 100 applications, 10 hours for 1 rep that gets into onboarding. Well, if we're looking at 4 recruits, 400 applications in this entire process, well, obviously you're looking at 40 hours of work. Now, this is why most organizations are not scaling up their sales teams in the way that they need to scale them, right? They maybe don't know how to or have the systems. they may not have the human resources to understand or have the time to execute. And a big piece of it is just the time and the consistency around recruiting, right? If you're a small business owner, you can't spend 40 hours this week recruiting 4 reps to get 1 to stick. Okay, and we haven't even talked about the onboarding, training, and management aspect of scaling a team, which we'll teach you about in other videos. But this is where it gets kind of painful. And if you just kind of take the numbers out, let's say hypothetically you want to build a team of 5. Well, if you want to build a team of 5 because that aligns with your revenue goals, let's say hypothetically you want to go from 1 to 6 million, right? That's a difference of 5 million. Right. Well, if rep quota, if the bare minimum expectations is $1 million, well, if you're going from 1 to 6 million, which is a difference of 5 million, and you have a sales rep expectation of $1 million, that means you need to recruit and retain 5 reps doing the bare minimums to create an additional $5 million in revenue. Well, if you have a 25% retention rate and you want to recruit and retain 5 commission-based sales reps, well, then obviously you need to recruit and onboard 20 commission-based sales reps. Now you're looking at 200 hours. Now you're looking at 2,000 applications and so on and so forth. And so it's just really difficult to recruit. And again, that's just the recruiting side. That's just getting the bodies in the door. Now, with that said, there's a way to reduce your workload a lot in this process, okay? Most organizations, they'll post ads, get the leads, they'll screen the background and make the best subjective opinion on that background that they can. And they'll jump on the phone, interview with that person, 10 to 15 minutes. And they got to burn through a lot of those, a lot of no-shows. Maybe they'll convert some of them into one-on-ones. The one-on-ones are not showing. And it's just a really challenging process. And it's a big time waste. And most organizations don't have the human resources and or the time, sometimes the systems to be able to do that. Okay, and actually there's one thing that I missed. It's really important. When you're scaling up a commission-based sales team and you're looking at this 20% of people that are potentially a fit, these are the people that need to go through a good recruiting process. It's a sales game, okay? So when you're recruiting, it's a persuasion thing, right? The better your opportunity is, the easier it is to persuade people into your opportunity. But every opportunity is a little bit different. Regardless of how good your opportunity is, recruiting is a sales game. What I mean by that is, if I were to come through your recruiting pipeline today, the question is why would I actually work for you? Why are you, from a leadership perspective, your culture, your industry, your company story, your plans for growth in the future, your sales compensation plan and opportunities for advancement into sales leadership, the nature of your onboarding, training, and management support that I'll get as a new rep, why are all those things actually good enough within your organization for me to exclude everybody else and come work for you alone? And the answer is that you have to sell me on it, okay? And so the salesmanship of the 20% of potential people is incredibly important for you to convert 10% to get the 1 person to show up on Monday. And the more that you need to recruit based on your retention rates, the higher volume of people that you need coming through your recruiting process. So ultimately recruiting, especially a commission-based sales team, it's a volume and a sales game. Now, from my perspective, again, I've been doing this for over 11 years. I've served over 2,000 businesses now. The easiest way from my perspective to do this is centralizing things around advertisements, a streamlined screening and scheduling process, a group presentation model, and a one-on-one interview model. Okay, so it's 4 steps. Now, within our service, there's other nuances within these steps, and if you want to learn more about that, just go to salesrecruitinguniversity.com. But there's other nuances within here, like DISC assessments and other screening steps that I'm not going to cover, because I just want you to understand the high-level structure, because this will be important for you. So 4 steps. The first one is ads. The next one is screening and scheduling. The third one is the group presentation. And the fourth one is a final interview, okay? And so again, what we're thinking about is, hey, how do we get volume, protect our time, and have enough energy to sell our opportunity to a lot of people so we can convert enough people into saying yes, so enough people show up on Monday for new hire orientation, and therefore we get our retention goals, right? Because again, the whole point of recruiting is to get the production out of people. Now, if it's not clear, ads, right, when we're thinking about volume, well, that's the purpose of the ads, right? Paid advertising to get the volume. If you do not have the volume coming through your recruiting pipeline, you're never going to get the end result that you need. Pretty short and simple, sweet and simple, right? Step 2, that's the screening and scheduling process, right? So this should make sense, right? The screening is the screening out of the 80% who are for sure not worth taking through the recruiting system. And the scheduling side of this is taking the other 20% okay? And scheduling them into step 3, right? Follow-ups, scheduling them into step 3. Now, step 3, this is where you sell your opportunity, okay? Things like your culture, your industry, why your industry is unique from a sales career perspective, your company story, your plans for growth in the future, the day-to-day sales model, the income opportunity, what minimum reps will, what the bare minimum income is going to be, what top 20% reps will make, what top 10% reps will make, what the top 1% within your industry or company will make, so people can get a picture of the income ranges, what it looks like to ramp up within your position, whether it's a 2-week, 30-day, 90-day ramp up, and the details of those things, so you're really clear on what it really takes to ramp up into financial success per your minimums, and also communicating what leadership opportunities look like as the company grows. These are all things that need to be communicated and sold in a group environment to protect your time as much as possible and to see who's potentially a fit. And so we have an 8-step presentation around it, and I just went through the majority of them, right? I went through 6 of the steps. The first step I didn't cover was just setting expectations at the beginning for the recruiting process, and step 8 was, taking next steps into the one-on-one. But those are kind of the core things that need to be communicated and sold in a group environment to figure out who's highly interested in the opportunity. Now, when you're good at this, you're going to get 25 at least, and up to 50%, sometimes more, of the candidates wanting to take next steps to a one-on-one, okay? And once they get here, they've gone through the entire A to Z presentation. They understand that, the nature of your position, the attractive and unattractive aspects of your opportunity, and therefore your one-on-one interview time with them is well spent because they fully get the whole thing. And from there, you're trying to close the right reps and figure out who you want to hire, right? Because if they take next steps out of this, and they fully understand the A to Z opportunity, well, these are going to be really, really good meetings that are worth your time. Now, to paint a picture of what this kind of looks like, at least for our clients, every client's a little bit different. We have clients that want to recruit 2 reps, 20 reps, 200 reps. But what we have seen is about any organization, regardless of their opportunity, industry, sales model, any organization can consistently do a couple group interviews weekly, 5 to 10 final interviews weekly. Group interviews, final interviews are 30 minutes each, so it's about a 5-hour time investment total. In between 2 group interviews and 5 to 10 final interviews, a company will recruit 2 to 3 commission-based sales reps, right? And once you have the process, you can turn it on and off whenever you want to pump reps in, whether you want to recruit week after week and recruit 2 to 3 reps a week, or even scale up those numbers or scale down those numbers. But it's the most efficient way to get volume and to sell your opportunity at scale. And so on average, what we see, if a company transitions from traditional recruiting, and they're wasting that 10, sometimes up to 15 hours, for every recruit, well, when they transition to ads, the right screening and scheduling process where there's a lot of automation and administrative work that removes a lot of the human resources that are needed typically to recruit. When all the candidates are pumped through a group interview model, you start to see at least a 50% reduction in time. And then for clients that work with us where, we do a lot of the work, they receive up to 80% time savings in the recruiting process, okay? So anyways, that's the recruiting model, 4-step process. Again, there's other steps that you can implement like assessments within this, and there's other miscellaneous screening steps in here and here and here. But this should be valuable to you if you have any recruiting experience. The main thing that you need to understand is, again, you need the volume and you need to have the process to take on the volume, and you need to invest the time, whatever that looks like for you, into the volume while selling your opportunity at scale. You can't sell your opportunity at scale and waste a ton of leadership time on phone interviews. So we have found that it's best to transition to a group interview model. So in short, bottom line, all sales teams are built with big pipelines. And you got to master the system, implement the systems, and tweak over time. So hopefully this was valuable for you. If it was, make sure to drop a comment, a like, subscribe, and we'll look forward to the next video. Thank you.